Hello and welcome to Gravid Husbands Conversations. I'm your host, Joseph Jude. Startup founders dream of building the next big thing. At least I did when I launched a cybersecurity startup. But as the statistics show, majority of the startups fail and fizzle out. Today I'm talking to Sohail who wants to change that. He has been a founder himself, not once, twice. He understands the field really well, and he has started Builders Club, a community, a vibrant community to support the startup founders in their journey. We are going to discuss why startups fail and what can be done to reduce the chance of failure. Before we get into the interview, can I request you to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, and share the podcast with other business leaders? Hello, Sohail. Welcome to the conversation.
Hey, Joseph. Great being here. How's it going?
Doing well, Sohail. To prepare for this interview, I was going through your LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn, you mentioned data driven approach.
Mm.
For me, startups and data driven approach, at least the beginning, it doesn't seem to, it seems two opposite things. Can we talk a little more about this data driven approach for building a startup and how we can, this particular approach will avoid failure? And how did you use this data driven approach?
So, I think everything is data. I mean, if you're running a business, if you're doing a startup, if you're doing anything, if you're not tracking what you're doing, you will never have an idea of which direction you are heading. Like, even if you're studying in any school, there are unit tests and exams where you tend to figure out, hey, how am I doing? Right. So I think everything that you do, any campaign that you run, and especially if you're doing business, you have to have data by your side. Otherwise, how will you know whether you're succeeding or not? I mean, of course, money or the amount of money that you're making, the business side, definitely. For you, I guess for businesses, the North Star metric is the amount of revenue which
Correct.
comes in and how much is the burn, and then you try to increase the revenue and then the ones. But if you look at division wise, every division basically has a North Star metric or some data that they track, which they're trying to optimize for. Problem is, especially in corporates, many times you become a cog in the wheel and you're
Hmm.
not probably aware of what metric is the management tracking, and you're just given directives. And this is where probably once you do your own thing, or if you're a part of a smaller setup where things are much more visible to you, you basically get to optimize, or basically have that number in your front, that okay, this is the number which you're chasing. Like, I mean, happy to get into examples as well with you, because I think for marketing, you track, if you're running a performance ad, you're optimizing for the number of leads at the lowest amount of cost. If you're basically launching a certain product in it, for the first some days, you try to optimize for the amount of downloads or the number of people who have registered. Then you try to optimize for engagement, activity. So I believe anything that you do, especially in business, if you have trackers for every activity that you're doing for, and you have clarity that okay, this what I'm doing here is going to increase or change this number, it becomes easier for you to understand the impact that these activities are happening. So I mean, I have had the privilege of working with early stage startups, right? I mean, for almost a decade now. I've been a part of multiple core team members of multiple startups. I've run startups of my own. I think this has given me a little bit more clarity that fine, all the other things are good. It's good to have things looking pretty, and and everything should look nice, but what is the impact
Hmm.
that you are having? And hence the data driven approach.
Okay. Now, you as you said, you have been part of multiple startup, the core teams of multiple startups. You yourself have started multiple startups. What was your motivation to go from that successful exits of these startups to building a community rather than probably another startup?
So I think when I made an exit from Evercare, my previous startup, this was during COVID times. I was not really looking to start something, very frankly. I remember I was on vacation with my wife, in the mountains, because that time the staycation thing was happening. Everybody was, and I basically stumbled across. I was basically just trying to find more people, more founders, which who are out there in the ecosystem, and see what they're doing, or probably work on a project. And I couldn't find any, very frankly. And I could only find discussion forums, Slack groups, but there were no platforms on which you could actively work on a project together, collaborate, or probably have even a longer discussion, because on a textual format, what more can you
Hmm.
do? Right? You can just ask questions that somebody will revert back, and then you DM them, and then there are chances that they might revert. And even then, from a chat to a voice call is a trust building exercise, very frankly. Before you actually go there and you can feel the vibe. I stumbled across this platform called Discord. And Discord had, at that point of time, this is back in 2020, this is pre Clubhouse, pre Today's Spaces days, where they had a voice chat feature. And I basically had seen the feature but never really tried it out. And then one day I was free in the mountains, and my wife was working. I didn't have anything to do, so I just said, "Okay, let me try and make a server and see how it works." And I basically thought that, hey, why not get 50, 100 of the people who are in these different groups together, and we can probably have voice chats. And in voice chats you have multiple things you can do. You can discuss your ideas. If you have any problems, you can ask for questions. And that's how the Builders Club started, very frankly. I'd never really thought that I'm making a community. I just said that, hey, okay, challenge for myself. In 6 months, can I make it 2,000 members? I can grow this community to 2,000 members. Cut to 6 months later, I had 25,000 members. In a year, we had 40,000 members. And then the whole idea of then basically I realized, okay, so probably we are onto something
Something.
something big, because we never really marketed. We still don't market. Our marketing is very bad, but people join in from referrals. 80 to 90% of the people are coming in from other people who are a part of the community and asking people to join in. Hence, a lot of people who are not into the startup ecosystem might not heard of us, but we are one of the largest. We have now become one of the largest startup founder communities across the globe. But yeah, I mean, I think once we became sizably big on Discord, uh, then the most logical thing was to, hey, how do I sustain it? And then the whole idea of turning this being looked at from a perspective of, hey, can we monetize this in some form, also came in. And yeah, I mean, I think any project that you work on, if it becomes sizable enough, and you have the need to make money to sustain it, is technically a startup, is technically
Hmm.
a business. So being working in the startup community for so long, I think these tags have kind of worn off now. I believe every business is a startup, every startup is a business in a way, in some form or the other. So, but yeah,
So what I'm hearing, Sohail, is that when you started off, you had a target. You already had a data. In 6 months, it has to
I
be
was chasing a
20,000.
number.
Yeah, you were chasing a number. Yeah, data
Yeah,
driven approach, right?
yeah.
And then there was a point you were saying, okay, I need to pivot now. It can't be just this voice chat based community. It needs to pivot. What other lessons that you learned in building a startup? What are those lessons that you are putting in the building of the community?
I think everything that I learned, in fact, the good part is if you are building something and if you're having fun with it. See, there are
Mm, mm,
two things out there. One is where you're fighting for survival, which
mm,
is where a lot of idea stage founders fail, that they put a gun on their own head, saying that,
mm,
hey, I'm leaving my job and I will see whether this thing works out or not. Doesn't work that way. The best learnings that anyone learns, or anyone has, is when they are playing, when they are
mm,
when they are learning without pressure. So I had that luxury with me. So we whatever I had learned, so whatever you study, whatever books you read, that, hey, you've read a book on, so there's this very interesting book called I think, Traction.
Yeah.
It's a book called Traction, which basically documents the different go-to-market strategies. It talks about the bullseye framework, where there are 19 different channels that you can exploit in terms of distribution. But you go with top three and you focus 100% of energy in top three and 80% of energy in the first one. I basically started with that approach. I basically said, hey, let me see 1,000 members. Does this work? Okay, so we've started, and that's where, every channel that we worked on, we had Bitly links, we were tracking things, and we knew who was coming from where. And I think in business or any startup that you're doing, technically you have a product or a service which you're selling to someone. And then one point is your information, your communication reaching to that person, you being into the consideration set of that person for the problem that you're solving for. And then whether once this person, then that person basically buys your service or takes your service and then gives you feedback, either positive or negative. It's positive, it's usually a repeat purchase. If it's negative, they basically either tell you what's wrong with you and then they move on, and you probably get an opportunity to improve your product. This is how we I mean, as a, I don't know whether you want to call it as a community or not, but as we were growing, anything that we had learned, or any division wise, any learnings that I had, which probably had not worked in my previous startups, I had an opportunity here to take a different path on the same problem which I was trying to solve there. And hence my what I said in the initial time before this is that you learn when you are learning without, when you're
Mm.
playing or when you are working without pressure. So I did not have a pressure, I did not put a gun on my head. I said, okay, whatever learnings I've had for whatever. So for product, people say this is the framework to follow. for for marketing, this is the framework that people say, let's apply this and let's see what happens. And there have been so many learnings which have come from those. We optimized our channels, we optimized our communication, we launched our own boot camp. I think the first one worked, second one didn't work, third one worked better than the first one. I have learned that, if you are playing the long game, um, you basically are competing against yourself. There is nobody else you're technically competing against. And every failure is technically you. I think the word failure itself should not be in the vocab of a startup founder or anybody else for that matter. You should always look at it as learnings,
Mm.
or like if you're doing an experiment in school, if you failed in an exam, that was not the end of the road. You basically took another exam after that, right? So for an entrepreneur especially, you're not going out there to work for somebody else now. So you basically, if you're failing at this thing, probably just see what didn't work here. What was the problem? Was it that you were probably, your solution was not right for the problem statement, or whether you were not even looking at the problem statement in the right way? Or probably, you failed for other factors, and probably you should look at a different problem, or you should look at the same problem with a different approach,
Yeah, different.
and then move on and see what works next. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that these are a few of the learnings. Again, from a tactical to a philosophical level, there were
Yes.
multiple layers through it. But yeah, these are just to sum up a few of them.
Okay. Thanks, Sohail. I'm going to dive on one particular point. I want to understand this a little more for myself. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
talked about play, which is you're working without any pressure. So it's a play, and which is also an experiment. So you're having fun with it. But on the other side of it, you are also chasing a number.
Mm,
Now, chasing a number is not going to be easy, or it's, at least in my mind, it doesn't fit as a play. It is a little
mm,
more serious, strategic work that you are doing. So, how do you
mm.
balance between it? What's the philosophy and the tactical thing that you talk about? How do you balance between these two?
I don't know. So the way I look at it, and this has worked for me at least,
Absolutely.
I I always assume that that number is there to be caught. So if, for example, for a person who, and again going back to my corollary of a school, somebody who's hitting rank one, usually is somebody who's focused on the target and he's having fun while doing it. He's not caring that, hey, I have to be number one. Many a times, I mean, at least the one what I have seen, that the people who are in the top 10 usually, they use, I mean, it comes naturally a lot of times. And because
Mm.
you're doing things your own way, and you always get feedbacks, right? You have positive feedbacks and you have negative feedbacks if you're checking yourself at the right interventions. Every test that you take, you know who's ahead of you, who's behind you. Problem is, in startups you usually don't do that. You don't have that checks. In fact, if you're in a corporate, you have deadlines to follow. You have somebody, a manager sitting at the top of your head. As an entrepreneur, this is the biggest problem that you have, is you don't have these checks and balances. You don't test yourself and you're too scared. And I think this is where people go wrong, that if you're chasing a number, first of all, see what is your current number.
Mm.
People are scared of taking that benchmark also.
Mm.
Hey, I'll be too low or I'll be too high. My point is, you're not there. You're not playing the game. You're just thinking of playing the game. The moment you step your foot in the arena and you
Mm.
know where you are, then you can say that, hey, okay, so I'm here, and let's say I'm in 30, I have to hit, let's say 80. How do I proceed? Right? And then you have different people doing different things to do that, and then you pick and choose from them. You can't do everything. But the first step is where majority of the people go wrong. 90% of the startups which come up to me say that, hey, I have this idea, I have done this with these many people. Everybody said it's a very good idea. I want money. The investor money is not revenue. Investor money is there for growth. The revenue comes from
Mm.
these people. Are these people paying you? Right? So my point is, whatever number you're chasing, first of all, you have to benchmark yourself. You have to give yourself a realistic picture where you stand. And secondly, where do you want to go? A lot of people have this, like, for example, I, if there's a Joe Rogan podcast, if mentally you don't imagine yourself to be like a Joe Rogan, you will never be a Joe Rogan,
Correct.
right? So my point is, you have to give yourself a very realistic picture. Okay, fine, probably not a Joe Rogan, probably a Ranveer Lavadi. Okay, even not him, probably XYZ, right? So you then you then benchmark yourself there, a realistic picture, and then you aspire for that, and then you realize that you have reached it, and
Mm.
then the next milestone comes in,
Mm.
right? So I think small steps, small goals, I mean, whichever way you want to put it, I mean, every book that you read technically tells you the same things in different ways. I mean, I'm also probably repeating those same things in a different way, but
Okay.
yeah.
So you talked about some of the frameworks. I'm a lover of frameworks.
Mm.
So can you talk about some of these frameworks? Even one or two is okay. Like you talked about sales and marketing, or any other frameworks that you would know. Can you share some of the frameworks, what these are, and how you've applied them?
There are some very basic ones. One is a regular SWOT analysis. Probably
Mm-hmm.
that might be a good diagnostic for you yourself. Many
Mm-hmm.
a times you're scared of writing those things down
Very
on
true.
paper, but SWOT is one of the basic ones, and one of the things which is going to the giving you a very clear picture of where you stand. Second is the Porter's five forces analysis for
Mm.
the landscape,
Mm.
right? So, and these are again things. So people talk about business model canvas. I have never been able to figure that out. As in, I have not been probably been able to apply it properly. So
Mm.
I
Mm.
so for me, I think for landscape we use Porter's five forces, the usual, competitors. So competitors, suppliers,
Suppliers.
buyers, complementers, and the this thing, and then we do this a basic SWOT analysis. From a business model perspective, I have a very simple take. What's the business model? And
Mm.
so I think for a startup, you should technically start from what is the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So a lot of people make a product and then try to fit it into the market. If you are making a business or if you are making a startup, you start from the problem and then you build a solution,
Mm.
right? So that's the reason why a lot of techies might build beautiful products, but they might not be successful businessmen, right? So,
Guilty as charged.
so Yeah, so that's because you're making a product which you like for
Mm,
yourself. But
mm,
probably 1,000 people, they're not a million people who are looking for that product, right? So
mm,
then probably if you're building for a niche and there are thousands of you find, you probably might charge a premium and
mm,
then sell it off to them. But there are different ways of doing it, right?
mm.
So one is, of course, you start off with a problem and then a
Problem.
solution. Second, is that solution something which the users are gonna buy? And then the third is basically what is your business model. So
Mm,
in business models, where basically people complicate business models a lot, there are technically just three different business models, right? So there is ticketed, which is people paying one product or service at a time. So you go to a shop, you buy an apple, you pay. You go to a concert, you buy a ticket, you pay. Right? So it's a ticketed event or a one price, one service. Second is S word, which is subscription. So you pay on a subscription basis. And third is brands pay you, which is advertising led. There are only these three modules universally. There is no third model. People basically do mix and matches.
mm.
People do freemium. They're, okay, शुरुआत में you get a free and then you start paying me. And then you get discounts and X, Y, Z, and there are different variations. But technically, these are the three different business models. Right?
Okay.
So you basically start with this when you're starting at a zero point 0.1 basis. Which of these three is your business model? Are you going to be ad led? Are you going to be ticket led? Are you going to be subscription led? Right? Don't complicate things in the initial days. And then once you see which one of these is working, you then basically do variations.
Mm. So now let's talk about the Builders Club. You talked about some of the numbers. So where are you with Builders Club now? How can anyone be part of this Builder Club? And what do they get being part of Builders Club?
Yeah. We started off on Discord, but one of the problems with that platform was that our TG does not really understand Discord,
Mm,
right? And there's a learning curve to the platform. People get confused, and also we basically moved to WhatsApp. But the problem with WhatsApp is that whoever joins in thinks that you are just a WhatsApp group, right? And there is no way you can showcase what all you do, and we do a lot of initiatives, right? So we currently have one of the largest startup founder communities in the globe. We have around 75,000 odd builders and decision makers from across industries, across geographies as a part of our community. We basically run a lot of initiatives, right? So we basically do events. We have a launchpad day where everybody who's launching products launches together and helps amplify each other's work. We basically have a fundraising track through which we help people raise funds. We also help people with services, so in case you people have different requirements, right, from accounting to legal to marketing to tech to HR or hiring, we basically help you with that. You people, if you want to become a part of the community, you can. We basically very recently shifted to nas.io/tbc. That's where we are, nas.io/tbc. We now have four different subgroups also. We have sub communities as well. And this is apart from the city chapters that we have. We basically have one for investors, we have one for founded founders, we have one which is a paid community in which you get access to around $500,000 plus worth of partner perks and credits. And then there is a super builder program, in which we have a very curated, the top 1% in their industries kind of people who basically network and work amongst each other. We are currently touching almost 100,000 odd builders. The aim is to go for 1 million now. The way we are envisioning it and the way we are adding value has progressively over time become more comprehensive. We started off with helping people with their queries to now to helping people connect, and now helping them with any kind of services or tools that they might require in the building journey. The intent is to become one of the most comprehensive system infrastructure for startups and businesses. So you people, anything that you might need for anything that you're building, you will be able to get help from the Builders Club. and that's where we are. That's what we aspire to be. And yeah.
Wonderful. Now, there are other organizations, so to speak, or communities for startups. Like, say, for example, TAI is one of the well-known one.
Yeah.
How are you different from there? And say, for example, if I'm a builder, I want to join. Why should I choose TBC than TAI?
I'll give you a comparison, or I'll give you a corollary. Basically, a Nika and an Amazon basically are e-commerce websites, e-commerce platforms, right? But they have a different value proposition, right?
Hmm.
They probably might be selling to the same customer, but they have a different perception, and they have a different problem that they have a different solution that is there for the problem, right? So currently, in the community ecosystem, every community is different from the other. They might have the same people. So you, as a startup founder, might be a part of five different communities,
True.
right? And it's become very easy for there is no barrier to entry. Everybody has a WhatsApp group, right? And you will be a part of smaller groups, which might be of your close friends, your business associates, or you might be of medium sized groups, which are 500, 200 members, or you might be of large sized groups, which might be like the builders club, more than probably one group, right? So we have 15 different WhatsApp groups, right? Each having 50,000 people each, and there is a cross pollination. If there is a demand domain specific one, there is a city specific one, want to be a part of those two as well, right? You will always be a part of these groups, but each group will be serving a different need for you. In
Hmm.
some groups, you might be going for news. Some groups, you know that, hey, if I have a query, I'll find a good solution here. Some groups, you will basically have friends with whom you chat a lot, right? So, number one, people will always be in multiple communities. They will never choose to be in your community. The choice comes when you ask them to pay,
Hmm.
right? So, this is where the question lies. What are the initiatives that we are running? So our intent is we never compete with anyone, right?
Mhm.
So we always say that, hey, you do your thing. We are always complimenters. Your audience might also be in my community member might also be in your community. Why don't we collaborate? our
Hmm.
intent is our intent is very simple, that we are a free community, but we have paid initiatives and paid services. You might choose to be a part of those if it adds value to you, depending on the feedback that we get from the different members, depending on what they need at the moment. We basically do those initiatives for you. Like, for the longest period of time, we have had events. We have been doing a lot of events. Now there are paid events which are also happening. You can choose to be a part of those, because there the crowd is more exclusive, might be of your own interest. There are investor founder mixers which are happening for free, which are a little bit open for all. Then there are smaller focus groups with just five founders and two investors. Right? So you and that might be paid, but it's your call whether. So we don't ask them. So again, our business model is all three of them now. In 3 years, we are ad led, we are brand led also, we are ticket based also, we are subscription based also. So we also have a subscription model, but this is again contingent to our. It's basically mapped to the value that I'm providing. So
Hmm.
it's a very transactional kind of a membership. We don't say that, hey, you get an exclusive community or network to work with. We say, if you are building something, you need these things. You need service, you need a co-working space, you need tools. If you become a part of a subscription plan, these are the things that you will get. These are hard, tangible things, right? You get access to co-working spaces. You get access to tools, SaaS products at a heavy discount. You get access to AWS credits. You get access to Notion. You get access to Bubble. You get access to all our services which we are providing, right from accounting, legal, for which you probably not will not have the capability, but we'll provide you as a plug and play. For this, you pay me $10,000, 10,000 rupees for 1 year,
Hmm.
right? So we basically currently, from a differentiation standpoint, I think we the it's an ocean out there. right? So you can't say that we will be market leaders out there. We don't aspire to be,
Mm-hmm.
because we never started off wanting to
Mm-hmm.
be a market leader. We have become one of the largest in terms of number. Now the intent is just to see if we can make this self-sustainable.
Okay.
That's the next goal that we have. That, hey, can this be self-sustainable? Can this go and grow on its own? Can we have the right systems and processes? And this is where we play, and then we see the impact which it is happening either on its this
Okay.
thing or not. So
Good. Okay. Now I'm a startup founder or a builder. I'm part of this particular community, and we started with this thing. I mean, how we can reduce the chance of failure of a startup or a building. How being part of a community, how does it help me to succeed or reduce the chance of failure?
so I think entrepreneurship is a lonely journey.
Yes.
Right. So this is something which I felt firsthand that, hey, if I am getting stuck somewhere, I don't know who to ask.
Mm, mm,
Right. Number one. Number two, this might not even be work related. I'm just feeling down, bro. Right.
mm,
Is there somebody who can understand what I'm going through, being in a similar boat? A community basically comes handy there. And it's not about just going there and spending time. I think the community needs to have proactive initiatives which involve you, or which gives you an opportunity, or gives you a chance to. Are there any movie nights which these communities are having? Are there any potluck house parties which is happening? Are there any mixes? So I might be feeling low, but I will not go out there and voice my. I should not have to go out there and say that I am lonely. I will just go to one of the places and feel good. Or I have you I there are opportunities for me that, hey, if I'm getting stuck here, there is somebody who can help me. If I
mm,
want this product, I can get it from here. So all
mm,
your problems get solved here. And so as a community, I think we have always had this helping each other kind of an approach, or kind of a culture, where if you're building something, the other community members will come and help you. So one is, of course, where any kind of queries which comes in. Second is, you basically are, there are different if, let's say, I'm launching a product, or let's say I'm launching an episode, there are other people who are there to share it or amplify it for me, so my work becomes a little bit easier, right? So you get by with the help of the other builders which are out there. And then there is the community which continues to have these different initiatives,
mm,
understanding what problems you will be having, and then helping you with the right initiatives at the right time. Like, for example, if there is a tax filing coming in, you don't know what to do. Are there any office hours which can happen with an accounting expert who will help you with that? Now, these are again very transactional things, but I think this person who's taking the workshop also comes from within the company.
mm.
You don't need to get people from outside. People will step up and say that, hey, I can volunteer, I can take this class for this guy because I know what to do.
Lovely. Uh, well, one of the problems that comes in with the community building is that initially there is a lot of sense of belonging and collaboration. All of that is happening, but as it grows, that sense of belonging goes off. There are
I
people
agree.
coming in and going in. It's always a migrant kind of a nomadic kind of feeling that comes in. How do you ensure that it is still there, and what are you going to do? It is going to be there as it hits other milestones.
So I have a question. Let's say there are 100 people in your party, and 80 of them leave and 20% remain. Who do you focus your attention on?
The people who stay.
Right. So basically, this is the approach, this is the mindset that you have to have irrespective.
Mm,
Right. So the idea is, there'll always be people who are just window shopping.
mm,
There'll
mm,
always
mm,
be people who are just exploring. They'll
mm,
come, they'll go. A few of them will stick along. But you have to focus on the ones who are sticking along. Why are they sticking along? Is there anything which they want? What is it that they are liking about the community? And then you build up on that. And then
mm,
what you say, another, a community of like-minded people. So the
mm,
like-mindedness will come from here. If you focus on the people who are sticking around, why are they sticking around? If you focus on the 99 who have left, then you're probably focusing on the wrong crowd. You're basically, You're basically focusing on the ones who are probably not interested in your solution in the first place, right? So to better your product, to better your community, to better your services, at the end of the day, community is a services game. You're servicing the people. Now, the in the service, you tend to automate a few things. You tend to, and there has to be a touch. Community is all about personal touches, right? So it's not transaction. It can't be transaction, right? So I believe focusing on the people who are sticking around, focusing on your power users, and being in constant connect, designing initiatives which allow them to connect with each other more and more, and taking yourself out of the equation and seeing things from a third person perspective, that hey, if I'm not in the room, will the community still work? Because if you are there, you basically moderate the whole thing. But if you are not there, then is there a process in place which basically makes sure, so then you can scale? Otherwise, you are always there. You have to always be there. Yeah, so we are in that phase right now where I am saying I am not going anywhere. Okay, if there is an event happening in Bangalore, can it happen without? So let's see. If there's an event which is happening in Dubai, can it happen without? Who is the one who will be our face, and why? Can this be one of the power users? Are they invested enough in the community? So we don't hire our volunteers; they come from the club. That hey, I'll take care of the city. I'll do this, and then there are certain KPIs. And here also a lot of people you'll find enthu cutlings. People say that hey, I'll do, but they'll not do. So we test. We always say first do it for 1 month. In 1 month only we get to understand how much proactive this person is. So, okay, fine. So we have this rolling things which continuously for any city that we are launching, we have this rolling thing. Every month you wanna try it out, try it. Okay, nothing happens, no problem. We try it out. Once we find the right person, okay, then we launch.
Wonderful,
So,
wonderful. Great.
anyways, yeah.
Sohail, all of this is fine. What's the future plan? You did talk about some of the future plans. What do you have for Builder Club in the future?
So I think one of the best things which has happened, I think 2024 we are gearing up for bigger things. One is I think we have shifted our community to nas.io, which allows you to have complete visibility of all the initiatives that we're running.
Okay.
The problem which we were having both in Discord and on WhatsApp is we were not getting to make separate landing pages for these initiatives, and a very dynamic way of managing things. We have notice boards of people who are looking to get hired. We have notice boards of people who are looking for co-founders. We have notice boards of companies which are raising right now, which is visible to our investor network. I think 2024 we are going bigger. We basically, both in terms of numbers and in terms of the initiatives that we're doing, there is some massive partnerships which are at play, and hopefully you will be seeing us more and more in the mainstream in collaboration, or rubbing shoulders with the right partners in 2024. And I think from a value perspective, I think things have become a little bit more structured for TBC. We're just planning to push those to the community members, because there is a lot of requirement that people continue posting on the groups. We basically just want to make it a little bit more structured. And again, the processes, what we are planning, hopefully by 2024 end, we might be in a good position to actually go global as well. So when I say global, we already have different chapters, but probably from a processes standpoint, things will be a little bit more smoother, and we'll be able to onboard different cities and different countries fairly simply, hopefully by 2024.
Lovely. All the best, Sohail. Sohail,
Thanks a lot.
time. To all my guests, I ask 3 rapid fire questions.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What's the kindest thing anyone has done for you?
Marry me, my wife. You can't beat that.
Lovely answer. Lovely answer. Okay. Sohail, this podcast is about leadership. In that sense, can you please tell me what you think as the best leadership quality and who has manifested it in your life?
I think leadership quality wise, I have had the privilege to work with some really good leaders. Okay, so Arunab, my mentor, and I think the co-founder of the Viral Fever (TVF). I've
Mm,
had the privilege to be his junior in KGP as well as work with him very closely for 5 years in the early days of TVF. I think from a leader perspective, you can't beat that guy. He has all the attributes for you to love him and hate him at the same time, right? So he is very crude. He has very, what do you call it, a very straight way of putting things the way they are. He'll never sugarcoat it, and that's something which we have carried in TBC as well. We don't sugarcoat our feedback, and people don't like that about us, but that is how it works, right? We are here to show you the real picture and making things happen. I
mm,
mean, I think as a leader, you need to give people their own way, freedom to do things their own way, and then give them accountability. So if I am giving you a certain job or a certain project to lead, you lead it. Wherever my intervention is required, you come and ask for it, but try and
mm,
solve majority of things your own way. You have these resources for you, and you are accountable for the results.
mm.
Right? Do it your way. So that is the way we also work. We never micromanage, and it's very. I mean, it's very difficult to find the right people. I've realized that in terms of hiring, but I don't know how he got it. He did it. I think a lot of things is serendipity in business, but I think the kind of people that I was in the crowds of in TVF, very difficult to find those kind of people
Okay.
nowadays.
Finally, Sohail, what's your definition of living a good life?
Happiness, happiness and prosperity. I think people confuse prosperity or wealth with a lot of money. I always say that something which is allowing you to continue with whatever lifestyle that you aspire to have and a little bit more. That much is good enough, and happiness is the most important thing. A lot of people, once you have gone through the grind, you will realize, and once you become old, like you and me, Joseph, you'll realize that nothing beats being content and being happy at what you do, no matter how much money you get. If you are happy doing what you do, you have, I mean, the peace of mind which you'll have in life is unmatchable. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, this is
Thank
basic.
you. Thank you, Sohail. Thank you so much for taking the time. Sohail, we talked philosophy, we talked frameworks, and we talked tactics. I think the density of learning in this 1 hour is amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Joseph, for taking time out for this and making this happen.
Okay.
Take care.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Can I request you to share the key takeaways from our conversation? And if you like this conversation, please share the podcast with others. Have a life of wins.